right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the European Commission's press room. Thank you also for following us live on Europe by satellite. Today is Monday, the 23rd of January. Let me start our announcements with a brief update regarding the President's agenda this week. On Thursday evening, President von der Leyen will deliver a keynote address at the high-level business event Future of Europe here in Brussels. Now, let me give the floor to Johannes, who has an announcement for you regarding Europe's Beating Cancer plan.
Thank you, Dana. Et bonjour. La Commission lance aujourd'hui l'initiative d'imagerie du cancer, un élément clé de notre plan européen de lutte contre le cancer. Les technologies numériques et l'intelligence artificielle jouent un rôle de plus en plus important dans la lutte contre le cancer. Ici, l'intelligence artificielle est mise au profit de la santé, deux priorités de cette Commission. L'initiative a créé une infrastructure numérique qui va lier les ressources et les bases de données d'imagerie provenant des hôpitaux, des centres de recherche et des répertoires dans l'ensemble de l'Union européenne, tout en respectant la protection des données. Les chercheurs pourront ainsi accélérer le diagnostic des cancers et améliorer les soins personnalisés. L'infrastructure numérique sera pleinement opérationnelle en 2026. De plus amples informations sont disponibles dans notre communiqué de presse. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Johannes. And then to continue, let me remind you that a meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council is taking place in Brussels as we speak. High Representative Vice President Josep Borrell is chairing that meeting, and the Commission is represented by Commissioners Oliver Varhelyi and Jutta Urpilainen. Ministers just had an exchange with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba via video conference. After lunch, they will welcome the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Mohammad Shtayyeh, to discuss the Middle East peace process. Ministers will also exchange views on the political, security and humanitarian situation in the Sahel and on cooperation with coastal countries in West Africa. Other points on the agenda today include Iran, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Venezuela, Montenegro and Armenia, Azerbaijan. So a very wide-ranging agenda for the Foreign Affairs Council meeting. A press conference will take place with the High Representative at around 6 p.m. today. And as usual, we invite you to keep your questions on these topics for that press conference attended by HRVP. That's all for our announcements today. I'm now happy to open the floor for any questions you may have for us. Now up, hoping it's not foreign affairs.
I think it's more to do with human rights. And my question is related with an incident in Stockholm last Saturday when one person burned the Holy Quran near the Turkish embassy. And I'm sure you are aware that the Muslim world has reacted with anger and condemned the attacks as a hate crime and not as a freedom of expression as claimed by the Swedish authorities. So your comment, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and indeed this would be something that Johannes will take today.
Thank you very much indeed, Dana. Thank you for the question. Yes, indeed, we are aware of the incident. We are also aware of the reaction by the Swedish authorities. There's also reaction, I understand, that might be forthcoming from our side. I can only say that such actions are not compatible with the values on which the EU is founded, and Christian has explained this before here in the press room several times in the past. We have said previously already that racism, xenophobia, have hatred on the basis of religion, race, color, and so on have no place in the European Union. But this is an incident the Swedish authorities need to look into, and this is for the Swedish authority to now take action on this, if appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johannes. Any other questions on this subject? Or on other matters that Johannes covers today, thinking that he's also covering for Christian? Not the case. Thank you, Johannes. I will now open the floor again for Any other questions that you may have? Naomi, I think you were next.
Naomi O'Leary, Irish Times. My question is a foreign affairs question. I hope that doesn't mean that you have to come back up to the podium again. I think maybe it's for Peter, though. So it's in the light of the foreign affairs meeting with the Palestinian Prime Minister today. I had a couple of questions about that. I read the letter from Commissioner Lenarčič regarding the call for Israel to pay compensation for the destruction of EU-funded aid. I wanted to understand if, in the view of the Commission, a consensus between EU member states is required in order for the EU to make that call, and also whether there's an estimate as it stands as to the value of EU-funded aid that has so far been destroyed in these demolitions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question, Naomi. So this would be something very specific about the calculation of damages in relation to support. There would be something that, from a methodological point of view, would be for Balázs, who is today replaced by Miriam. I'm not sure whether she has the answer at hand in relation to that, but she's going to look into it, and more generally about the matters that you discussed, so not specifically on the methodology of calculation. I would invite you to keep the question for the Foreign Affairs Council, because, as I said, there will be a discussion on the Middle East, and the HRVP can answer. But for the part of the answer which is related to Commissioner Lenarčič, Miriam will come back to you as soon as possible after the midday briefing. Naomi, follow up.
Sorry, I didn't understand. Regarding the need for a consensus vote, does the Commission think that all the EU member states need to support the idea of calling for Israel to pay compensation? Is a consensus required in the Council? In other words, in your view? Thanks.
Well, it's not a matter of views, it's a matter of procedures. I wonder if Peter has the answer at hand.
I know, not wanting to prevent the exchanges with the Palestinian Prime Minister, but you heard already certain ministers upon arrival at the FAC mentioning this specific issue. Now, without wanting to venture into Balázs's portfolio and discuss the content of the letter of Commissioner Lenarčič, one has to distinguish what exactly has been destroyed in terms of what are EU-funded projects with, for example, Commission money, and what are individual projects funded by individual member states. So here I cannot give you a clear-cut answer, because then we need to see what objects are we talking to. But indeed, as the ministers have flagged, some of them today, this is one of the issues that is on the table when we are discussing both with the Palestinian partners and also with the Israeli side.
Anything on the procedure?
Again, I cannot, as long as we don't know about what exactly we are talking about, the EU-funded, like Commission-funded projects, or projects funded with the participation of member states, it's very difficult to give you one general reply. So if you have a concrete, specific object in mind, and we know where the financing was coming from, we can discuss that. But again, not wanting to go into the content of Commissioner Lenarčič's letter, because I don't know what was in that letter, and Balázs is not here, so we will get back to you after this midday with more details on this very particular issue.
All right, thank you, Peter. Any other questions that you may have for Peter? Ideally not on the subjects which are covered by the FAC, because there, as we said, it's the HRVP taking the questions at the press conference which concludes that meeting. I see no other questions for Peter today, so thank you, Peter. Oh, there is perhaps a question in Interactio. Yes, Svetlana. Go ahead.
Yes, I will try to put my camera on, yeah? Do you see me? Yes.
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Yes, it's a question for Peter. After the meeting with the light check with the President Vučić and Prime Minister Kurti on Friday, does Peter has something to add? How it went and what are the next steps? Thank you.
Thank you. As far as how it went, EU Special Representative Lajčák spoke after his meetings both in Pristina and in Belgrade, summarizing about how it went and about the next steps. The immediate next step is that HRVP will inform the ministers today at the FAC about the outcome and next steps in the dialogue, and then you might hear something more at the press conference after the FAC is finished.
All right, thank you, Peter. Any other questions for Peter today? I don't see any, so thank you. And now I can again open the floor to any other subjects that you may want to discuss. David.
Thank you, Dana. It's a question on Italy and beach concessions. I don't know if it's for Sonia or for Verle. The government and the parliament are looking to a new delay on the issue of the opening of competition on this sector. I'm wondering what would be the consequences of another delay, and if it would have an impact on the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sonia?
Thank you, David, for your question. Indeed, we are following very closely the recent discussions in Italy on the reform on the competition law that was adopted last year, and also what could be the impact on the legislation implementing the reform also on the beach concessions. At this stage, there hasn't been any decision by the Italian authorities, so there is no reason for us to comment on this discussion because no decision has been taken. And we are in contact with the Italian authorities also in view of the implementation of their commitments. As you know, we have an ongoing infringement procedure, and we are following closely also the implementation of those commitments.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. David, go ahead, follow up.
Yes, thank you. Just to understand if this issue is linked to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan of Italy. If it's, I'm not, I do not know all the 400 pages of the Italian plan, so just to understand if this is one of the milestone or targets that it's foreseen by the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, David. That would be for Verle, hoping that she has in her head all the 400 pages of the Italian plan, as well as all the other 100 pages of the other 26 countries. Verle is most welcome to tell us what she knows.
Indeed, what I could dig up quickly is the following. The adoption, so beach concessions are not formally embedded in the milestones and targets of the Recovery and Resilience Plan, and therefore we are not in a position to comment on this in the context of the plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Val, because he's now on the podium? I see that Tommaso's hand is up in our chats. I wonder if your question is for Vera. No, it's not, because the hand is now down. I don't see any other questions for Vera, and then I give the floor to Tommaso for other type of questions.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can, Tommaso. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Many thanks for the floor. It's a question about wine, if I may, because in Italy there has been a big debate about the decision of the Commission to give the go-ahead to Ireland, which approved a law which prescribes the labeling of wine bottles with warnings about the risk that the assumption of wine might cause cancer. So I wonder if you could explain, please, the reasoning behind this decision of the Commission. And does the Commission think that drinking a small quantity of wine provokes cancer? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Tommaso. So this has several angles. So first of all is the health aspect, which you brought at the end, with regards to the impact of alcohol or wine consumption on health. And for that, Stefan will join me on the podium, and perhaps there will be a need to complement.
Thank you very much, Tommaso. Maybe indeed, let me start with health. Something that's already very clear in our Beating Cancer plan is the fact that harmful alcohol consumption is a public health concern in the European Union. And so the ambition of our cancer plan that you're familiar with is to achieve a relative reduction of at least 10% in the harmful use of alcohol by 2025. We should reduce harmful use of alcohol, which is a top priority of the Commission. Now, under EU law, limitations to the free movement of goods are strictly defined. Restrictions can only be justified on the basis of overriding grounds such as health or consumer protection. On the specific Irish law you refer to, this has aspects relating to free movement, has aspects related to health. What I could say is that the Commission received a notification from Ireland concerning the notification of a draft regulation. It was notified under two mechanisms, under the Single Market Transparency Directive and under the Food Information to Consumers regulation. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit technical here. What I can say is that the Commission did not issue a formal reaction under both with regard to the food information regulation. There also the Commission did not issue a negative opinion on the draft, but this is a topic where we are dealing both with health aspects and with free movement of goods perspective, so maybe Sonia would also like to add some issues.
Yes, but I think that covers basically the health aspects, and in terms of process, what was our position with regards to that notification. Tommaso, you have a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Yes, it's just a curiosity. Does the Commission think that drinking a glass of wine each day is a harmful consumption of alcohol? And if yes, why not labeling the cars, which provoke cancer with the emissions? With big labels, it causes cancer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I think that Stefan said what he could say with regards to how we refer to alcohol and the role of alcohol consumption in relation to cancer. I wonder if there is anything more to say in relation to that, but do not also forget that member states have a very important role in implementing what we have in terms of principal guidelines and findings in relation to the role of alcohol and other factors in cancer, producing cancer. Anything else, Stefan, that you would want to venture adding?
Yes, nobody is against wine. I love wine. I think we all love a nice glass of wine. What the Beating Cancer Plan is about is to avoid harmful alcohol consumption. It's harmful alcohol consumption, which is a public health concern, and towards which our work is geared to avoid, indeed, harmful alcohol consumption. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorenzo, is it about the same topic?
Yes, it is. Just to be clear, so now in Ireland it is possible, Ireland can add some sticking labels to wine coming from France, from Spain, from Italy, etc., and that is sold in the country with these warnings like the ones that we see on cigarettes, on tobacco, and the Commission accepts it. This is my question. I would like to understand if this is the state of the situation now. Thank you.
Stefan?
Thank you very much. We understand that a regulation has been adopted by Ireland following already a public act that they adopted in 2018. It's this regulation that has recently been adopted that lays down the technical aspects of the language to be used, of the visuals to be used in the context of this specific labeling. And on this, indeed, the Commission has not made any specific comments. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Stefan. Any additional questions on this? Naomi, it's about that. Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, if you don't mind me just coming in there, I understand part of the concern on the Italian side was about the introduction of different labelling kinds throughout the EU that are inconsistent. From a single market point of view, having inconsistent labelling practices in different member states is bad for trade or interferes with the single market in some way. Do you have any concerns about that? I mean, should there be one standardized labelling approach throughout the single market from this point of view? And is there any concern about Ireland's new law in that regard? Thanks.
Labeling is an important topic, and as you know, we are working on labeling. We had already announced in our Farm to Fork strategy and in our Europe's Beating Cancer plan that we work on the revision of the regulation on food information to consumers. Now, what we want to make, what we would like to ensure is that we empower consumers to make informed, healthy, and sustainable food choices. Now, an impact assessment is being prepared, as is the case for all legislative proposals covering labeling. It's based on scientific evidence provided by our colleagues from the European Food Safety Authority and the Joint Research Centre, and also following consultations with citizens, stakeholders, targeted surveys with member states, businesses, and so on. Technical work is at this stage ongoing in view of gathering additional evidence. And this is what I can say in terms of the work that's ongoing with on labeling, which is a very complicated, technical, but very important topic and which requires the necessary study and preparations.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Any other questions on this topic? Not the case, or on any other health topics that Stefan could tackle right now? Yes. Yes, go ahead, follow up.
Thank you. Любовь Пронина, Bloomberg News. On the same topic, if I understood you correctly, you said that with regards to Irish decision, the Commission hasn't made any specific comments, but are you planning to make any comments at a later stage? Thank you very much.
To my knowledge, as far as I am aware, the process has been handled, managed. If it's not the case, I'll be back to you, but to my understanding, the Commission has not made indeed any specific comments, and with that, I believe, in the absence of a negative opinion, the Commission no longer has to intervene here. Should I have any further information, I will let you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan. Last call for any questions for Stefan. It's about the same topic, David? Stefan, go ahead.
Oui, merci. Stéphane, c'est à propos de la pénurie de médicaments qu'on voit dans l'Union européenne. Je crois que vous êtes en train de travailler sur différents sujets à ce propos, mais je me rappelle, après le début du Covid, les problèmes qu'on a eus en approvisionnement aussi de médicaments. À l'époque, la Commission avait dit qu'elle aurait lancé toute une série d'initiatives pour rendre l'Union européenne indépendante. Et aujourd'hui, 3 ans après, on voit qu'on n'a pas des médicaments de base assez importants comme le paracétamol ou des antibiotiques essentiels dans cette phase de l'année. Comment expliquez-vous ce retard? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. médicaments, ça couvre un large éventail de produits, évidemment. Il faut voir pour chaque produit, pour chaque médicament, quelles sont les causes de retard de production. Il est vrai que nous vivons maintenant dans une période difficile. Comme vous voyez, nous avons l'invasion russe de l'Ukraine, ce qui a aussi des incidences sur les supply chains, excusez-moi pour le mauvais français. Donc, ça dépend de chaque produit, quelles pourraient être les causes de manque de production, je dirais. Ceci étant dit, c'est évidemment un problème ou un défi que nous suivons de près. Ce qu'il faut souligner d'abord, c'est que la politique d'achat de médicaments, ça reste avant tout, la politique de gestion des médicaments reste avant tout une politique nationale. Donc c'est dans la main des États membres. Ceci étant dit, vous savez que dans le cadre de notre Union européenne de la santé, nous avons renforcé, par exemple, notre agence européenne des médicaments. Et c'est dans le cadre de cette agence, justement, qui a des contacts intenses, je dirais, avec des représentants de tous les États membres pour suivre la situation. C'est aussi dans le cadre de ce travail-là que l'Agence des médicaments européens a fait certaines recommandations que vous allez trouver dans leur statement qu'ils ont publié le vendredi dernier, où ils appellent par exemple à l'utilisation de certaines flexibilités réglementaires, donc d'appliquer certaines flexibilités lorsqu'on applique le règlement, par exemple en ce qui concerne labeling, en ce qui concerne étiquetage, ce qui rend le processus d'autorisation plus simple. Donc l'Agence européenne des médicaments suit ça de près. Je tiens aussi à souligner le rôle que ERA peut jouer dans l'organisation, par exemple, d'achats communs de médicaments, lorsqu'il y a évidemment une demande et un intérêt de la part des États membres de le faire. Mais donc c'est une situation que nous suivons de près et à ce stade-ci, toutes ces initiatives ont été prises. Finalement, à plus long terme, je tiens à souligner aussi qu'on va adopter notre révision de la législation pharmaceutique, dont une partie concernera également la fourniture des médicaments, le but étant d'assurer des médicaments qui sont accessibles et abordables et de bonne qualité, évidemment. Voilà une longue réponse qui, j'espère, couvre ta question. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Et juste pour ajouter que c'est un problème qui est observé au niveau mondial, ce n'est pas une situation qui est spécifique à l'Europe et ça a beaucoup à voir aussi avec les chaînes d'approvisionnement au niveau mondial, mais nous travaillons dans toutes les directions que Stéphane a mentionné, aussi bien évidemment, tout en soulignant l'important rôle des États membres dans ce processus. Je pense que Virginie a une question là-dessus. Vas-y Virginie.
Oui, bonjour. Là, tu as parlé de la révision de la stratégie pharmaceutique qui sera présentée en mars, je crois, mais qui va surtout porter sur le suivi des stocks, des choses comme ça. Est-ce qu'en matière industrielle, parce que c'est quand même ça l'essentiel de notre problème, et on a vu mi-janvier une nouvelle usine fermée aux Pays-Bas qui fabrique des génériques. Donc, est-ce qu'en matière industrielle, vous envisagez de faire des propositions pour inciter les laboratoires à produire en Europe d'ici à mars, ou est-ce que c'est un sujet qui sera réservé à une réflexion plus large sur la souveraineté européenne et notamment le fonds de souveraineté, enfin donc pour plus tard, c'est-à-dire pas du tout tout de suite?
Ce que je peux dire, Virginie, merci pour ta question, c'est que dans le cadre du travail de l'Agence européenne des médicaments, il y a des contacts avec les États membres, mais également avec l'industrie, pour voir quelle est la situation de production dans l'industrie pharmaceutique, où est-ce qu'il y a des shortages, et comment est-ce qu'on peut faire mieux pour assurer ou pour améliorer les chaînes de production. Donc des discussions ont lieu, évidemment c'est très sensible, c'est très important. C'est tout ce que je peux dire à ce stade-ci. Je ne peux pas non plus encore me prononcer sur ce qui sera dans le règlement ou plutôt dans le package qu'on va présenter concernant la révision de la législation pharmaceutique. Nous sommes en train de travailler là-dessus, donc ce serait un peu tôt déjà donner des indications là-dessus maintenant. Merci.
Merci Stéphane. Y a-t-il d'autres questions à ce sujet? Virginie, tu as une question de suivi, je pense.
Oui. Mais je voudrais bien qu'on soit clair, la législation pharmaceutique, la stratégie pharmaceutique, on est d'accord, ça ne concerne pas du tout l'industrie, de toute façon. Donc, soit, et par ailleurs, le problème de production des médicaments, et notamment des génériques en Europe, il est structurel, il n'est pas nouveau. Donc, ok, l'EMA donne des autorisations accélérées, mais c'est de l'aide ponctuelle, c'est très bien, mais ça ne règle pas du tout le sujet. Est-ce que vous comptez vous mettre sur ce sujet plus structurel, ou est-ce que de manière rapide et d'ici mars, en plus de la législation pharmaceutique, est-ce que vous l'envisagez à tout le moins, ou est-ce que c'est un sujet pour plus tard?
Merci Virginie. Le but, l'objectif de la révision de la législation pharmaceutique a été bien expliqué lorsque nous avons adapté notre stratégie pharmaceutique. C'est en effet assurer qu'on a suffisamment de médicaments, toutes sortes de médicaments, qu'on a des médicaments qui sont abordables, qui sont affordables et qui sont de bonne qualité. Ça, c'est l'objectif de base de cette révision de la législation. On veut également assurer une autonomie stratégique de l'Union européenne dans le cadre de la production des médicaments à l'égard du reste du monde. Tout ça a été expliqué dans la stratégie pharmaceutique, et c'est sur base de ces objectifs-là que nous sommes en train de travailler sur une révision de la législation. En ce qui concerne le travail, maintenant, à court terme, concernant la production de médicaments qui pourraient être, dont il n'y a pas suffisamment de quantité, là, je ne peux que répéter ce que je viens de dire, c'est que le travail est en cours avec l'Agence des médicaments européens, qui a un mandat renforcé qui leur permet justement de suivre de plus près cette question importante avec les États membres, avec l'industrie, avec les stakeholders qui importent là-dedans. Merci.
Merci. Donc, il y a le travail de court terme pour prendre en compte la situation sur les marchés en ce moment. Et là, on a un nombre d'acteurs qui sont déjà à l'œuvre. Et puis, il y a la révision de la législation qui a comme but de prendre en compte tous les aspects, tous les volets, tous les leviers qui sont nécessaires pour s'assurer que, du point de vue long terme et moyen terme, tous les éléments sont en place pour pouvoir fournir aux Européens les médicaments dont ils ont besoin à des prix compétitifs, à des prix abordables, et qu'il n'y a pas de pénurie. Donc, il y a les deux axes de travail qui se font en même temps. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? J'en vois pas. Si. David.
Thank you, Dana. There's a number of studies on the COVID inoculations which have shown that the adverse reactions come in relation to certain productions and not in others. Have you seen these studies, and what is the Commission reaction? Because obviously there's something different in the supplies are not of the same purity and the same contents.
Thank you very much. So what you're basically saying is that depending on the production methods, the product is...
Sorry if I'm not clear. Maybe I should have sent you the document. But a number of scientists have checked where the adverse reactions occur in relation to the origin of the supply of inoculations, and found that adverse reactions happen in large peaks with some, but not in others. So that it's actually, 4 or 5 times normal in some productions and normal in others. So there's something obviously wrong with the quality.
Thank you very much, David. There's 2 things I could say here, or I will say here. First, when it comes to adverse reactions, this is obviously a medical issue which is closely followed by, again, our colleagues from the European Medicines Agency. We as a Commission, we of course want to make sure that our policy decisions are driven by a scientific approach, and when it comes to medicines, we look at what the European Medicines Agency tells us, and you may also find it useful to contact the colleagues of the European Medicines Agency to see issues regarding adverse effects. The second thing is when the European Medicines Agency gives its green light to, and again, the EMA knows more about this than we do, but when they give their green light or their approval to a medicine, this follows also a very thorough assessment of the production methods and the production processes. It is very important that when a vaccine is produced, that it continues to be the same good, qualitative, effective, efficient vaccine if you produce 1 million of them. So this is why EMA, before giving a market authorization, looks at production methods. Thirdly, I said I was going to say 2 things, but I'm going to say 3 things, sorry. Thirdly, COVID is still among us, and I would therefore like to use the opportunity to again insist on the importance of vaccines, vaccination, and getting boosted. This remains the first and foremost way to address and to tackle this nasty virus that has been in our lives for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Any other questions for Stefan today? Not the case, so thank you. Anything else that you would want to discuss with us today? Yes, go ahead, Ludmila.
Thank you. I have a question about the electricity market consultation, which will last for 3 weeks. Will that be enough for such a big issue and the market that has been in place for the decades? If you could explain the rationale behind it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. Tim is joining me on the podium to provide a more ample response, but what I can tell you is that in relation to the specific subject of electricity market design reform, our intention and determination is to proceed quickly, as this is something that is important for Europeans, the aim being that of reaching a situation where we have the right sources of energies which are secure and which are affordable for Europeans. So we want to proceed rapidly. This is one of the reasons why we have given 3 weeks for this public consultation. Anything else, Tim?
Not very much to add, thanks, Dana. Yeah, as you say, the Commission is launching a public consultation today, which will run until 1 minute to midnight on the 13th of February, so at least nobody is drafting consultation responses on Valentine's Day, if you want to look on the bright side. But as Dana says, this is something which we've been working on now for several months. It's a topic which has come up repeatedly in our exchanges with stakeholders, with ministers, with European leaders. This has been a long announced consultation. I think the industry and all interested parties are very mobilized and ready to respond. And of course, you know, the public consultation is just one part of that broader dialogue, which we've been having and which we will continue to have until the proposals are put on the table.
Indeed, and this is not the start of our work with stakeholders and of exchanges with all those concerned, and we expect them both to be ready to contribute, to have formulated their ideas, and to just send them to us, and we look forward to receiving those. Any other questions on the subjects or on energy? Not the case, so thank you, Tim. Any other subjects that you want to address with us today? David.
Yes, thanks again, Dana. Last week I asked about the contacts the various commissioners had with people at the Davos World Economic Forum meeting. I was directed towards the transparency file of the president, for example. I haven't checked them all, but when I did check that, it appeared that the only item was that the president had met with the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum. Curiously, that particular item has disappeared. No longer, the dating of the transparency thing is not showing that particular World Economic Forum at the moment. So my question is basically on when I checked the World Economic Forum website, there's a photograph showing the board of trustees in which the president was at the middle of the photograph, it would seem. So I'm wondering whether the president is a member of the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum, and does the commission, in the person of the president, agree with the stakeholder capitalism ideology of the World Economic Forum?
Thank you for your question, David. The president participated to the World Economic Forum this year. She was invited there. She delivered a keynote speech which was live and which was open and very transparent, and you could follow yourself. And she doesn't have any structural association with the World Economic Forum, which I understand your question to mean. And her speech there and all her contributions to this forum and to the other forum do not mean that she is associated in any other ways with them, or that she would share any type of ideology which you seem to associate with the World Economic Forum itself. So she is attending it as a guest, being invited there to deliver public performances, public engagements in the form of speeches, and this is what you need to read in her participation to the World Economic Forum. Any other questions for us today? Yes, a follow-up, David.
I'm just wondering if anything could be done to improve this transparency, because when a commissioner goes to a large meeting of 1,000 or more, and there are a lot of very important world leaders there, we get very little information. I mean, if there's a one-to-one meeting in Brussels, we get some notification, but it's not easy to follow what's going on in a closed-door meeting in the Alps when you're meeting with, for example, the head of Pfizer was there. Did you meet with him? We don't have any, short or long conversations with people one might have in these meetings. Is it possible to improve the transparency of those sort of operations where we have a commissioner going to a large meeting and we don't know who's actually she's in contact with beside giving a speech?
Thank you very much for your question, David. Again, I would advise you against implying the fact that if you have not heard about a meeting, the meeting took place, but you have not heard about it. It's also because the meeting didn't take place. So we have communicated via social media about the meetings that the president had at the World Economic Forum last week. So in addition to her very public engagement to deliver a speech on a Tuesday morning, she had also met with the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, about which we communicated on Twitter, and every such meeting that she has is either registered by definition in the Transparency Register, considering the rules that we have, or we communicate when there is a public interest about it, we communicate about it on social media. So, of course, it's always important to look at how the rules are implemented in a general way, and to facilitate the way that you can find such meetings in the Transparency Register. But do be reassured, we have a policy, a very strict policy with regards to filling in the Transparency Register all such meetings as defined in the requirements of the Transparency Register. And from a public interest perspective, we do communicate on such meetings either beforehand and certainly afterwards. Right. Any other questions for us today? I don't see any, so have a good afternoon, and stay tuned for the press conference after the Foreign Affairs Council at about 6 p.m. Thank you.